basically just as introduction, we've been working on the StraboSpot 2 interface for a couple of years now, getting it whipped into shape. And it started testing. We started testing it last summer at a field camp, and then tested it off and on in a couple, 3, 4 field areas over the fall and winter. Testing, of course, is a little more hazardous because of COVID. So anyway, I'm going to start out today with just a background on StraboSpot, kind of where we are as a StraboSpot system and what we're doing now. And then Nick will take over with a demo of the new capabilities. This is being recorded. We'll be putting this up on the StraboSpot website. So, I mean, the StraboSpot YouTube channel. So hopefully that doesn't cause any problems for anybody. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and start. Is everybody seeing a 10-minute intro to the user interface, user experience of StraboSpot 2?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, great. So we'll do a quick introduction. I'll just do a quick introduction to StraboSpot 2 and some of the things about the user interface, user experience, and also talk a little bit about what we're calling the StraboSpot ecosystem, or at least that's what people who do this sort of thing call their software packages. So you all got an invitation for this because you were at one of the webinars last summer. Just kind of as a quick reminder, this is the idea behind StraboSpot, that geologists work in the field by collecting data at almost any scale, taking samples back, cutting them up, and then analyzing them again at almost any scale. So that the general thing that we have to keep track of is spots, the information that's contained with them, and then relationships between them, so that we can go all the way from, say, a field map like this of an area in Australia, to samples, to collecting samples, billets, thin sections, photomicrograph, and other analyses. So this is the power with StraboSpot, that it's completely agnostic as far as the hierarchy and where you are in scale. It's just as comfortable one way as another, and that makes it a little bit better than a GIS system that usually has an intended scale of use. So StraboSpot started development in 2014 after an EarthCube RCN a couple of years earlier, and a field RCN that Matty Mukherjee led. And out of that, we got some initial design requirements. And this is where we started off. The idea was it needed to function on a phone and tablet. So we ended up with, in Strabo 1, these single page, single phone view size pages that you would then get one of and navigate around as you could. The next design criteria, it should run on both iOS and Android. And the application needed to interact with the GPS, camera, accelerometer, magnetometer, et cetera, et cetera. And we started the development of this in a software pair we call Cordova, or that are called Cordova and Ionic, for platform independent development. And that's why we could run this first system on both iPads and any Android devices. The field testing started in January 2015 with both sets of devices. And so you've seen the mapping part. We have a stratigraphic part of it too, where you can measure sections, incorporate images. That's another part of StraboSpot you're not going to be seeing today, and that's still in development. And then, of course, StraboSpot's supported by vocabulary. And this vocabulary was developed through community interactions. And this all started in 2014 and went on, so that we're establishing really a lexicon of terms that people use. And that's important because we're trying to build on this, not invent it and replace it. So what we've done sort of every step along the way is engage people for review, use, review, more review, even more review to come across these things that should be used. And then we also have to make the data discoverable. This is a new interface that we're just throwing up right now. You should be able to find it at StraboSpot.org under the search. So trying to serve all this material and follow the community guidelines and wishes. Another part of the ecosystem that came in is something called Strabo Tools. Alan Glazner had a paper in GSA Today last summer introducing this, where just using field photos, you would, for example, the rock in the upper right, you could compute modal analyses, preferred orientation, and even something simple like color index for plutonic rocks. So together, these things that I've showed you all put into the StraboSpot ecosystem. The field part, which is StraboSpot, collecting data using Strabo tools, StraboSed. There's another major part, again, you can see this at the YouTube channel that we're calling StraboMicro. This is really taking Strabo more easily and more tuned to the microscopic level. And something we just kicked off recently was the experimental deformation community collaborating with us as well, so that we can basically go all the way from field to photomicrographs, rock structures, and the experiments that coordinate that. And of course, for you at the user, as a user, we have the management at StraboSpot.org that you can come on, you can go to your account, you can manage your files, public, private, et cetera. And there's a lot of other capabilities there as well. So again, when we're doing this, we're trying to respond to what the community is wanting. So we launched the first StraboSpot at GSA in 2017. In 2018, we had a pretty intense group of petrologists to help us evaluate how the interface was working, how the system was working. So this is the group at the White Mountains in California, and basically really running it through its paces. And so they worked on it and they weren't so happy. I mean, it worked, but they had a lot of suggestions. And out of this 2018 field experience, we did a lot of review, and we found that over 90% of application installations were actually on iOS devices, and they weren't on Android. And almost all the installations were done on tablets rather than phones. And so that sort of brought us to thinking, well, we need to make some improvements. What are those things that we need to do? And what I hope you see today is good map display improvement. People also wanted the integration of the device with orientation, measurements, et cetera. That was not being handled. It was being handled okay, but could be done better. The performance sometimes would be lagging, and just in general, visualizing maps and data together were a little harder. So what we started with was this idea that we should use some of the programming done in Swift, which is the iOS native programming language. We then combined that with something called React Native, which develops cross-platform, iOS and Android again, but now in a native mode rather than just kind of on top of the operating system. And then we were able to tie everything together with another bit of technology called Redux. So our new interface is looking like this. This is about as busy as it gets with map, a lot of color coding available, and Nick will take you through the left side, the settings and preferences, and the right side, the notebook, a little later. But the main thing here is that we have much better integration with the compass so that measurements are easier to take. You can display those measurements pretty much in real time as you make them. You can work with those very well. And all these screens are tied together by this Redux product that makes this all pretty much live simultaneously. And then we have this toolbar at the bottom. That's the same as using the tabs that are now in StraboSpot. Just we have a display there. One of the things we did, and this design is completely new, but because we work with the community from the start, the look's new, but it's 100% compatible with Strabo 1. So we've kept that compatibility. We haven't had to break anything because I think we did a fairly good job working with how people wanted to see their data and how they wanted to describe it. If you take your data and upload it to the server, you can bring it back down on Strabo 1 and Strabo 2, and it's all the same. The other thing is we started to add other features to it. For example, a really much better sketching module to put together for folks. So this is a lot of the new design work that we've gone through. It works. We've spent all our time on iOS at this point. I'm told by the developers it runs fine on Android devices. We just haven't tested that out yet. So anyway, that's my quick introduction here. Thanks for coming, and Nick will be up next. And it's coming to an app store near you soon, and it's on Apple's test flight as we speak. All right. So what we're going to do, if I can somehow get out of this, there we go. What we're going to do now is hand it over to Nick, and he'll start giving us some other things in the actual demo about stuff.
All right, see the kind of full screen PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we have been working for about 2 years on this new Strabo interface. So we're pretty excited that it's in beta testing mode. I just want to give you, before I go into a live demo, I want to give you the broad strokes overview of the way that the new app is set up. So when you open the app, after you log in, you're presented with basically just the map. And there's a series of buttons along the left-hand and the right-hand side to access different controls. So the two main panels are the notebook view up in the top right and the settings, maps, and attributes view that pops out when you tap this house icon on the left. And then there are some map controls. So there are different map actions that you can take. So you can zoom to the extent of spots in your project. You can save the current view of the map for offline use, and a few other things. You can control the symbology, customize which types of data show up on the map, as well as controlling how tags are colored, how the spots are colored by either geologic unit or conceptual tags, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's a map layer button that you can use some built-in maps that come bundled with Strabo, and also add custom maps, and I'll show you how to do that. You can show and zoom to your current location. And then here on the bottom right are kind of the main tools that you interact directly with the map with, and those are adding spots to the map. So you can add a point spot at your location, or you can long press this button to be able to add a point to anywhere on the map by just tapping on the map. And then you can add a line spot or a polygon spot, and the long press is there, switch it between a kind of where you have linear segments versus a freehand curved line. And finally, this here shows you your current connectivity status, so whether you're offline or online and using online or offline maps. So if you tap the button on the left, this settings and preferences pane contains a lot of different information. So it contains information about the account you're logged into, the project that's currently loaded, and opportunities to back up that project to the device or to the cloud at strabospot.org. You can also browse your data. So you can see lists of spots or images, samples, and tags. And then you can control and add new custom maps or image-based maps. I'll talk about that. And finally, down here, this is pretty nifty. You can, I'll talk very briefly about shortcuts, which are ways to add data without entering the notebook. but you can also set your station and sample naming conventions, so it automatically names new stations in a consecutive way. And then on the right-hand panel is the notebook view. So when you open the notebook and you can see the spot that's selected on the map, it will give you a summary of the data within that spot. And then it gives you the opportunities to add data using the tools at the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna give a live demo that it's gonna be relatively quick. So I don't necessarily expect you to be following along. Additionally, I will be demoing a version that will be up on TestFlight very soon, but it has a couple visual updates from what you've downloaded already on TestFlight if you've downloaded already. Most of the things that I talk about now, we've actually already made videos for over the weekend and uploaded them to our YouTube channel. So there's a StraboSpot 2 beta playlist on our StraboSpot YouTube channel that you can check out if you want to follow along at your own leisure later. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that. I'll go over to my iPad. All right, so you can see my iPad screen.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to be using a mouse so that you can see kind of where I'm tapping. So when you first open up the app, you'll be asked to log in. And when you sign in, you can either start a new project or project from the server. So I'm going to just load a project from the server. That's StraboSpot.org. It has a list of all the projects here. And I will load this one. Okay, so it's easy as that. So I have a data set that has been loaded up. This is a data set that I'm working on in Central Arizona. And if I click into the preferences pane, when I first load a data set, it's in active project. But if I want to get that again, it's this second thing here. So active project. For those of you not familiar with Strabo, the way that data is organized are in data sets. So you can have multiple data sets within a single project. And right now I just loaded a bunch of data into the default data set. But if I want to add a data set, I simply do this, and I can do a test data set. And when I turn that on, now I have the opportunity to either down here under active data sets, store new data in this test data set or in the default data set. So up here, this is what gets displayed on the map, whether it's on or off. And down here, active data sets, that's the one that actually gets added to. Okay, so just to review how the app is set up, if I click on a spot, I can open up the notebook and it will give me information about that spot. And we can go to the different tools if we want to add more data. So if I click on the measure data, there's a compass here and I can adjust it around as I see fit. And I can collect planar data or linear and planar data at the same time, or just linear data. So those are my choices. Or I can input manual measurements by tapping on this red text. So to take a measurement, I can simply tap on the compass, and you see over here in the notebook under planar plus linear measurements, there's a new feature. So I can take, sometimes you like to take a few measurements at different places in the outcrop. And then I can go over here and I can hit this button, identify all. And what that does is I can then categorize all of the measurements that I have. They were all bedding measurements, let's say, and I knew they were bedding because of a lithologic change. And I can do the same for the lines. Let's say that they were slicken lines on bedding planes. So now I have these measurements categorized here. And so all of the tools, measurements, tags, samples, notes, you can take a picture, import a picture from your photo library, or make a sketch. So if I click make a sketch here, here's what the sketching tool looks like. I can select a color and draw, and it is pretty smooth. I'm drawing with the mouse here, so it is going to look pretty bad. I can say save. I can also annotate a sketch by clicking on the picture and then using this button, annotate, and it loads that picture up into the drawing tool. So maybe I want to highlight a boundary that I saw. I can save that, and it doesn't overwrite the original image. So if I X out here, now you can see that I have a annotated image as well as the original image. These are not the only tools we have. If I click more, you can see that there's a bunch of different tools that you can customize, and you can add as many as they want. And they start, if I click out of this, they start stacking in that lower part. But this is just meant so for whatever type of data that you collect and whatever your workflow is, you have that vocabulary easily accessible. Okay, so the first thing that a lot of people want to do when they start a project is load some maps. So if I click on the layer button, you can see I have a few custom based maps here. You can also change using the preloaded types of maps. And if you want to save a map for offline use, you just zoom to the extent that you want to save to. So if I want to save this whole field area, and then you can tap this map actions button and say save map for offline use. I won't do this now because it takes a few minutes to download the tiles, but you select a zoom level that you'd like and you download those tiles. You can also add custom maps. So if I go into the home button and I click custom maps, you can see I have a few different custom maps that I've preloaded, but I'll just add a new one. And I'll call this AZ. Strabo takes 3 types of custom maps. So mapbox.com has a Mapbox Studio function where you can do really intricate, detailed, layered maps that then Mapbox provides a service to tile those, and we use that service. So if you have a Mapbox account, you can create maps like that. We have the Map Warper. You can upload images and georeference them, and then it gives you a little number, and you can plug that down in here. My favorite that I use all the time is our in-house function, which is called StraboSpot My Maps, and it only accepts geotiffs. So TIFF, .tiff files that have georeference information stored in them. But unlike the other two, you upload this to your StraboSpot account and then you available across projects. So I'll select StraboSpot My Maps, and then I will just navigate over to Safari. And if I make this big, so this is my StraboSpot account. It's under account. Sorry, I'm not using the mouse. Account, My Maps. It'll just ask me to log in because it's been a few minutes. And here are all my maps that I have. And I'm just going to take this geologic map of Arizona, click that button. It copies it to the iPad clipboard. And now I can go back to Strabo and paste using this button right here from the clipboard. I'm going to save that. And let's just zoom to the extent of spots. It got a little off center. And once I've gone through that process, if I go into custom maps again, here it is, Arizona, the custom map. And on this button, I can now load that map up. That's a state geologic map of Arizona that I georeferenced. So you can do this very quickly. And and you have those maps on your StraboSpot account. So that's just one way to get custom maps into Strabo. Okay, so once you have whatever custom maps you want, I'll just go to Mapbox Topo so you can see it a little better. You can start adding spots. So you can add a point spot at your current location. I'm in Madison, not in Arizona, unfortunately, so I'm not going to click that. But if I long press it, then I can just place a spot anywhere on the map. And so I've created a new spot. It's completely blank. If I want to know or update the location, I can click on the location. And if I want to update it to location, you can use this button here. And I want to show you something that allows you to actually add data not to a map, but to a photo within a spot. So I'll go to this spot because I already have a photo that I prepared for this. So I have turned on use as image base map. And so if I click that, it just looks like a normal photo. But if I go back and I say view as image base map, it loads that photo into the map portion of the app. And notice I've already added some spots here. So one spot, it has a sample. I sampled the Mayfic rock. And another spot, it also has a sample. I could add a, yep.
Your screen's lagging a little bit on mine. I don't know if it's doing that on others or not. Your photos are just coming up now.
Yeah, I think just wait a second for it to catch up.
Yep.
Okay, I'll wait a second. Let me know when it's caught up.
We've got use as image base map now.
Is the map loaded into the window?
The image is loaded.
Okay. So it's all caught up?
Looks like it.
Okay. So there's these two spots that I've added. And they were just two different samples of two different rock types. And I can add a curved line if I want, in between, separating if I want to highlight the contact. And so you can go and you can do quite a bit of detailed work at sub GPS level. And it is infinitely scalable. So you can, if you wanted to load up a very close-up image in this spot, you could use that image as a base map. And any spot that's within an image, it both has the GPS coordinate of the parent spot as well as the pixel coordinates of the image that it's on. And if you're ever a little bit confused as to where a spot is, you can hit this spot actions button and show nesting. And it shows you the current spot that's highlighted and any parent spots and any spots that are contained within those spots.
It's
all right. Let me just check my
here.
Okay, I'll just give it a second.
I think you're caught up now with the nesting.
All right. Okay, so I will X out of this, the image map to get back to the base map. And I'll close the notebook. So another thing that I often want to do in the field is kind of review or look through the data that I've collected so far. Kind of like flipping through a notebook at the end of the field day. So to do that, you go up to the home button in the top left, and under attributes, you can see that you can click to see a spots list, image gallery, samples, or tags. So if I go to spot lists, then I can see a list of all the spots that I've created for this project, as well as a little visual summary of the types of data that are in each spot, designated by these icons. And if I want to open up a spot, I just click on it and it pops up in the notebook window. Am I all caught up, Doug? Are you seeing that?
Where the notebook window isn't popped up yet, but we can see the spot list.
Okay.
Notebook just showed up.
Okay, great. So there are 3 ways to organize this spot list. You can go in reverse chronological order so that the most recent spot appears at the top. You can also click over to current map extent. So that shows you only spots that are within the screen of your iPad. This is really handy if you're just trying to figure out, oh, I know I went to this place, but I can't remember what spot that was. You can just zoom into it on the map, and it will show you only spots that are in the current iPad view. So that's a really handy way to kind of visually filter your spots. I'll let it just catch up. And then the third way, you can look at just the spots that you have recently viewed. And I think, I'm not sure that how exactly recent is taken into account. I think it's the recent spots since you last quit the app and opened it again. So you can also do the same thing for image gallery and just see the map extent, or by reverse chronological order, just browse all your images. And if you tap on one of these images, then it pops it up large, and you can swipe to just scroll through all of your images and kind of browse spots that way. Okay, let me know when I'm all caught up. It should be kind of the blank map again.
You're there.
Okay, great. So the last thing that I want to talk about is how tags work. So tags are ways to identify features that spots across different map extents share. So examples are geologic unit tags. If you're going and mapping and you want to say what geologic unit different spots are in, you use tags for that. Another one are conceptual tags, and that can include things like a marker metamorphic facies that you've noted, or just simply a marker layer. And so there are different types of conceptual tags. A geologic structure, or a generation of structures that you might want to tag across a map extent. So the way that, let me zoom out, find the spot that I've kind of loaded a tag up in. So if I open this up, under tags, you can see that I've tagged it as a banded iron formation, a conceptual tag. So I can just see how to add a tag by clicking this tags. You can select a tag, check a tag that you've already added to the project, or you can add a new tag to the project. And here it shows you the types of tags. So, conceptual tag, type of concept. But we already have the tag that we want. And the other thing that we want to do is open up the tag and give it a color. So when you first create a tag, it has no color by default, but I clicked on this banded iron formation tag, and it opened directly information about that tag. So I can view or edit the tag, or I can up here assign the tag a color. So we'll pick a red. And now that I've assigned it a color, if I go to the symbology map, I can say show tag color, and I want to color the spots on the map by conceptual tags, not geologic units, because I'm using a conceptual tag here. So now if we click off of that spot, you can see that it is color coded in red. And this is really useful if you're going and mapping and but you're not doing the kind of contact walking that people sometimes do when they map. You're just going, and you can start to build a picture based on the geologic units that you're tagging things in, or the conceptual tags that you're using. So that's how tags work, and it's a way to really effectively show that tag information on the map. Doug, is there anything else that you think I should showcase here that I've left out?
No, I think that's fabulous. We can just let people ask questions and show new things to them if we have questions. I guess just stop sharing for now.
Sounds good.
And we'll go ahead and take questions. I just had a few things that I wanted to add. I was making notes as Nick was going through this. One thing that it's working well now is all of the handwriting recognition, voiceover work with notes, so that you can pretty much online or offline sit in the field in either mode that you want to use, enter notes. And then one new thing that we haven't highlighted very much is the keyboard now is available as a tear-off keyboard. I don't know if anybody's used that. That tear-off keyboard then will float around and won't be the big thing at the bottom that you see, and it won't sit in front of any of your stuff. A couple other quick things. The My Maps that Nick showed you is very flexible, and that's actually the way we recommend now if you have separate, for example, drone images that you take in an area, or you do something with structure from motion, you can just output those, put them straight into My Maps and map on those. No problem with that at all. And one thing I hope you noticed as Nick was demoing is now when you go to add data down on the lower right, it actually tells you which data set it goes in. And I usually map for half a day in the wrong data set before it's time, before I figure that out. Last general thing I wanted to tell you about StraboSpot is we've gone from a local server to one that runs on an NSF server called Exceed, XSEDE. It's an NSF supported system. So all of that is there. It's still the same level of backup, redundancy, et cetera. Actually, there's one last thing I want to tell you, because this really made my day when I found out about it. The iOS version for StraboSpot 2 now supports the whole file system. So rather than when we told people back it up to your device, you can now back it up to your device, copy that onto a memory stick, and keep individual backups on your person or at your field site if you're not in internet contact. That's just hopefully, sorry to interrupt with that, Nick, but those are some features that I remembered as you were talking. So, so we'll take any questions or demo anything people want to see at this point. Anybody have any questions? Just go ahead and yell them out.
Doug, I have a question. This is Kevin Mahan. First of all, I'm really excited about this. Thanks for all of your work, your whole team. So with the tag coloring, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the way I have gotten around displaying tag information by color in StraboSpot 1 to this point is to fill in, to create polygon spots and associate a tag color with a lithology, for example, and then you can display the color coding in filled polygons, even if they're small polygons just associated with one particular outcrop. So my question is that feature still alive, such that you could have color-coded polygons, but also color-coded spots that are tagged by concept, for example. So that because my impression is that right now in the interface where you turn on tag color symbology, it's either or.
Right.
Yep.
So at this point, if you've already done that in StraboSpot 1, you've made those polygons and you've brought them in, they should come out with color in Strabo 2. We'll test that to be sure, but that should be how it would work for you. You're right. It's an either or process at this point.
But that's a great point, and we're open to that kind of. I don't think that's a terribly hard fix from a programming standpoint to kind of say point spots are one way, polygons are another. That would be okay.
And I'm just going to pop up a map here that shows some tag coloring. Right now, it's limited to either polygon spots or point spots. We're going to be adding color to line spots as well, so that it's flexible in that regard. Other questions?
Yes. Keith has his hand up.
Yeah.
Hi guys, yeah, it's Keith Klepwise. Thanks very much for doing all this. This is really fabulous. I do have a question about a comment you made, Doug, about the drone imagery. I remember from Strabo 1 that the best images to use from, say, drone studies or structure from motion were ortho images. And did I understand you right that now you've expanded that to include other kinds of data, or is it still ortho images?
So the best way is to use ortho images,
Okay.
and then you can bring those ortho images in georeferenced.
Yeah.
We actually have you can download an autonomous version of StraboSpot. So if you were in the middle of nowhere flying your images but didn't have internet access, you could actually serve it and tile it onto your data system from there if you want. That's one way of doing it. But the other thing you could do is if you have a nice ortho image you just want to work on as a base map, you can bring that in as an image and work on it as an image base map.
Okay.
There's probably going to be a little bit of limitation on the size of that in the field app, but certainly on the desktop app, there's no size limitations.
Okay, so in terms of displaying three-dimensional data, that's a bit difficult.
That's full three-dimensional.
Maybe Strabo 3.
Right. Okay. I was just curious. Thanks very much. I'm excited to learn the new version. Thank you.
Any other questions from folks?
I'd just like to confirm whether or not the Strabo 2 works on iPhones. What I heard you say that it does not. Is that correct?
The initial release is only going to be for iPad. We basically decided to go for the most common use case, because the more devices you program for, the more time you have to take to kind of tailor it to each one. But we wrote it in a code base that can be ported to iOS for iPhone, Android. And so that is a possible direction that we will go in the future. But for the May release, it's going to be iPad to start with.
Yeah, we'll do a release to the App Store in May. We are, like I said during the intro, we're working and going to start planning on getting an Android version functional and put together. It's already functional, but just testing it thoroughly. And then the iPhone, the smaller size, we haven't jumped onto that yet. So right now it'll run on anything from an iPad mini to a large iPad Pro.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? All right, Nick, do you want to share your screen and do the test flight stuff?
Yes. Okay, so let me pull up that QR code. So this is for people who have not yet downloaded the app. So I'm gonna just share my screen. Okay, so the way that you get the app is first you go to the App Store on your device, on your iPad, and you download Test Flight, which is an app that Apple makes. And it is essentially an app store for testing apps. So it behaves just like the App Store, except that initially it will have no apps in it. And once you have that downloaded on your iPad, use your iPad to just open the camera and point it at this image here. And this image is a link to download the Strabo into that Test Flight app store. So we sent out a link earlier. There are other ways to do this besides this QR code. Alex or Doug, if you could put that link to basically the link that this QR code represents in the chat. You can also go to that link on your iPad and it will do the same thing as this. But for those of you who haven't downloaded it and have your iPads with you, you can point it at the screen here. This was in the PDF that was sent out earlier as well. It's the exact same link.
Alex, can you put that link into the chat? Couple other quick little things. If you do get this and you start using StraboSpot 2, if you want to send comments or input, I would definitely send a letter to StraboSpot. There's feedback at the StraboSpot.org site. You can email any of us directly. That would be fine. I will say we've had it on test flight for 2 weeks now with maybe half a dozen or more users working with it, and there have been no reports of crashes yet. And we get crash reports and other things. Yes.
And that's maybe a good thing to highlight. So you using Strabo on test flight is really what we need, because we have over the past 3 months or so done a lot of going out around town, as COVID allows, and testing out the app. But when you have a user, 4 or 5 users doing that, we just don't get to every use case. So the more that you go out and test the app using it the way that you would in the field, every time it crashes, if you catch a bug, it will send a crash report directly to our developers, and they can go in and look and see what happened. And if there's some behavior that you don't like or that isn't working the way you think it should be working, you can provide screenshots, and through the test flight app, you can provide kind of document and give comments, and that will also go directly to the developers. So your use of Strabo is going to really help the broader community when it gets released to have a more stable version that has fewer bugs.
All right. I'm having trouble finding the link. We'll send that out in an email after this webinar finishes. So does anybody have any more questions? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming today. Hopefully you found this interesting and are ready to start testing Strabo 2. Like I say, Strabo 2 is still in beta mode. We haven't found any glitches, but I would back up often. I would use the facilities in StraboSpot to do backups to external devices or your computer, etc. And anyway, thanks everybody for coming. We'll send out an email with the link in it again here soon with without any more questions, I guess we'll just go ahead and end this then. Thanks very much. Thank you.